U.S. House has voted against U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs on Canada.
The House voted tonight to cancel President Trump's tariffs on Canada.
House voted today to rebuke President Trump's tariffs on Canada. 6 Republicans joined Democrats passing a resolution to repeal those tariffs.
We have been clear. This government will always defend Canadian workers and industry when they face unfair and unjustified tariffs.
Nobody expected this to happen. For months, Donald Trump projected complete confidence in his trade war strategy against Canada. He presented the tariffs as bold leadership. He described them as necessary leverage. He insisted that America had been treated unfairly for decades and that his administration was finally correcting that imbalance. According to Trump, tariffs were not just economic tools, they were instruments of strength. But now, something extraordinary has unfolded in Washington. The resistance is no longer coming only from Ottawa. It is not limited to Democrats criticizing from the sidelines. It is coming from inside Trump's own party. Republicans have begun turning against him over the Canada tariffs, and that shift is sending shockwaves through American politics. This moment is more than routine political disagreement. It is a rare and highly visible bipartisan rebuke. Members of the U.S. House moved to challenge or roll back the tariffs imposed on Canada.
And since these tariffs was imposed, U.S. exports to Canada have fallen by more than 21%.
Arguing that the policy is harming American businesses and raising costs for consumers. What makes this dramatic is not Democratic opposition. That was expected from the start. What makes it explosive is that several Republicans joined the pushback. Lawmakers who once strongly defended Trump's America First trade philosophy are now signaling that this particular battle may be going too far. For years, Trump's influence over the Republican Party has been defined by loyalty and discipline. Public dissent was limited. Major votes typically ended with party unity. Critics within the party were rare and often cautious, but this vote suggests something deeper is shifting. When members of a president's own party publicly oppose a signature economic move, it signals vulnerability. It tells allies and adversaries alike that unity may not be as solid as it once appeared. The Canada tariffs were framed as a pressure tactic. Trump argued they would force better trade terms and protect American industries from unfair practices. He claimed that Canada needed to understand America's economic power. However, critics within Congress are now highlighting the unintended consequences. U.S. manufacturers that rely on Canadian raw materials are facing higher costs. Automotive supply chains, deeply integrated across the U.S.-Canada border, are experiencing disruption. Agricultural exporters worry about retaliatory measures. For many lawmakers, these impacts are not theoretical. They are being felt in their districts. The economic connection between the United States and Canada is immense. In sectors such as automotive manufacturing, energy, and agriculture, supply chains cross the border multiple times before a product reaches consumers. A single vehicle may include components assembled in both countries. When tariffs are introduced, costs increase at each stage. That reality complicates the simple narrative of winning a trade war. Instead of isolating Canada, the tariffs risk entangling American industries in higher expenses and uncertainty. Political pressure is mounting in key states that depend heavily on trade with Canada. Lawmakers representing industrial regions are hearing from factory managers, business owners, and workers concerned about cost increases and supply disruptions. Rising expenses for manufacturers often translate into higher prices for consumers. In an environment already sensitive to inflation and economic instability, that creates political risk. Representatives facing re-election must weigh party loyalty against local economic interests. Another layer of concern involves the broader strategic implications. Canada is not an adversarial power in the traditional sense. It is one of America's closest allies and largest trading partners. Escalating trade conflict with such a partner sends signals beyond North America. Markets respond to uncertainty. Investors evaluate risk. When congressional resistance becomes visible, it can alter perceptions of stability. Instead of projecting strength, the tariff dispute now appears contested and unpredictable. For Trump, the optics are significant. His leadership style has long relied on projecting authority and control. A bipartisan challenge from Congress undermines that image. If lawmakers are willing to publicly break ranks on trade policy, it suggests limits to executive leverage. That dynamic could influence future negotiations, not only with Canada, but also with other trading partners observing the situation closely. There is also the question of political calculation within the Republican Party itself. Some members may view continued escalation as economically risky. Others may believe that maintaining strong economic ties with Canada is essential for long-term competitiveness.
If the president has concerns about trade issues with Canada, guess what? This president negotiated a signature trade deal, the USMCA.
While support for tough trade policies remains strong among segments of the party, the practical consequences of tariffs are becoming harder to ignore. Balancing ideological commitment with economic pragmatism is a challenge that cannot be avoided indefinitely. Canada, meanwhile, has maintained a relatively measured tone. Officials have emphasized cooperation and the importance of stable trade relationships. If Congress ultimately restrains the tariffs, it could strengthen Canada's negotiating position while exposing divisions within U.S. policymaking. That shift would carry symbolic weight, reinforcing the idea that economic disputes cannot be resolved unilaterally without domestic political consequences. One thing is certain: the narrative has shifted. And in politics, when the narrative shifts, everything else can follow.
President Trump was very disappointed that a few members of the House that are in utter denial about the positive effects of President Trump's policies.